The day I found my mother's diary, I wasn't looking for it. It was tucked inside a wooden chest beneath her bed. The one she used to say was just for old memories. She had been gone for almost a year, and I thought I had already made peace with her death. But that night, a storm raged outside and something pulled me toward her room as if her spirit was calling me. When I opened the chest, the smell of lavender and dust hit me. Inside were yellowed letters, a silver locket, and then the diary. The cover was cracked and soft, the pages swollen with age. My hands trembled as I flipped through her delicate handwriting, a voice from the past whispering through every line. She wrote about her youth, about me as a child, about the loneliness after my father left. But halfway through, the tone changed. Her entries became darker, filled with fear, and she began mentioning the Watcher. At first, I thought it was just the product of her imagination. She always had a flair for the dramatic, but as I read, her fear became real. She wrote that the Watcher knew things about me, things no one else could know. She said she could hear him whispering my name through the walls at night. I felt a chill as the wind outside slammed against the window, making the shadows dance across the room. Then I reached the final page. My breath stopped. In the center of that last sheet, written in a trembling hand, was my name, Eleanor, but not in ink. It was a dark, dried stain, uneven and deep crimson. Blood. I dropped the diary, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it echoing through my chest. For a moment, I thought I could smell the metallic scent of it. I wanted to believe it was impossible, that it must have been spilled wine or a cruel trick of time. But deep inside, I knew it wasn't. My mother had written my name in blood, and beneath it, faintly scrawled, was one more line: "He's coming for you next." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old house sounded like a breath behind me. I thought I saw movement in the hallway, just a flicker, like someone turning away when I looked. I told myself it was exhaustion, grief, imagination. But the diary lay open on my nightstand, and the red letters seemed to grow darker as the hours passed. I didn't know what scared me more, the idea that my mother had lost her mind before she died, or that she hadn't, the morning after. Sunlight poured weakly through the curtains, but it didn't bring warmth, only a harsh reminder that the nightmare hadn't ended. The diary still sat on my nightstand, the crimson name staring at me like an open wound. I wanted to throw it away, burn it, destroy every trace of it, but something inside whispered that I shouldn't, that maybe, just maybe, the answers to what happened to my mother were hidden in those pages. I made myself a cup of coffee, but my hands were shaking so badly that I spilled most of it on the counter. My reflection in the window looked pale, hollow-eyed, almost like hers in the last months before she died. She had been terrified of something I couldn't see back then, and I had dismissed it as grief. Now, I wasn't so sure. I decided to go back through the diary, this time slower. Each entry seemed to spiral deeper into madness or revelation. She described footsteps in the attic when no one was there, whispers from behind the mirror, and cold spots in the kitchen where she said he liked to stand. He watches Eleanor while she sleeps. One line read. My stomach twisted. I had been a child then, sleeping in the room next to hers. I tried to remember, had I ever felt it? The sense of being watched, the chill at night. Maybe I just didn't want to believe it. By the third hour of reading, I found an entry dated a week before her death. He knows I'm writing this, she had written. If something happens to me, don't stay in this house. He's bound to the blood. I froze. Bound to the blood. The phrase burned in my mind. Was that why my name was written that way? I didn't understand, but my instincts screamed that it wasn't just a metaphor. That evening, I went into the attic. The air was thick with dust and the smell of old wood. My flashlight flickered as I moved past boxes of forgotten life, Christmas decorations, my baby clothes, a broken cradle. In the corner, I noticed something odd. The floorboards were newer, replaced recently, unlike the rest of the attic. Kneeling, I pressed my hand against them and felt a faint warmth. My throat tightened. I grabbed a crowbar and pried one up. Beneath the wood was a small box wrapped in faded cloth. I opened it, and inside was a dried lock of hair tied with red thread and another diary, smaller, older. Not my mother's handwriting. The last page was blank, except for one word written in the same red stain: Eleanor. I sat frozen, staring at that single word, my name bleeding across the page. The air in the attic thickened, pressing against my lungs until every breath burned. The world around me felt distant, muffled, as if I were trapped underwater. My mind kept repeating the same thought. How could this be written before I was even born? The paper was brittle. The incore blood had long dried, older than my mother's diary by decades. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, and for a second, I could almost hear my mother's voice whispering, "You shouldn't have come here." The flashlight flickered again, and when it steadied, I noticed something scratched into the underside of the box light initials. Smar. My mother's name was Margaret Rose. But if it was hers, why was this diary older than her? I brought the box downstairs, every step creaking louder than it should have. Once in the kitchen, I laid everything on the table. The diary, the hair, the red-stained cloth. I didn't know what I was expecting. Answers, maybe. But what I got instead was silence. Heavy, watching silence. Then a faint sound broke it. A knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps from somewhere deep within the house. It wasn't the door. It came from below, from the basement. My hands trembled as I grabbed a knife from the drawer. I didn't believe in ghosts. Not really. But belief didn't matter when your body was screaming that something was wrong. I turned on the basement light, but it didn't work. Only the first few steps were visible in the faint glow from the kitchen. The rest disappeared into blackness. That smell, old iron, mold, something rotten rose up to meet me. I swallowed hard and started descending. Halfway down I heard a whisper, my name, clear, close, soft enough to make my skin crawl. Eleanor. It wasn't my mother's voice. It was deeper, colder, echoing through the concrete walls. I froze, knife raised, heart racing, breath short. For a moment, I thought I saw something moving in the shadows, a figure, pale and still, just at the edge of the light. But when I blinked, it was gone. I ran back upstairs, slammed the door, and locked it. The knife clattered onto the floor as I pressed my back against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. The diary lay open on the table, the word Eleanor staring back at me. But this time, there was something else beneath it, a faint imprint I hadn't seen before, as if more writing had been pressed onto the page. I tilted it toward the light. Slowly, the words appeared. You can't leave. You belong to him now. That night, I couldn't close my eyes. Every time I tried, I saw that word, belong. The house felt alive, breathing as if it were waiting for me to make the wrong move. I sat in the corner of my room, knees pulled to my chest, the knife back in my trembling hand. The silence was unbearable. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., the sound returned. 3 knocks, slow, heavy, from beneath me. I didn't want to go near the basement again, but the sound wasn't just noise. It was calling. Every knock vibrated through the floorboards, matching my heartbeat, until I couldn't tell which was which. The air grew cold enough to sting my skin. I could see my breath in front of me. And then, the lights flickered out. Darkness swallowed the house. I whispered my mother's name, hoping somehow she could hear me. Nothing. Only the faint creak of footsteps in the hall. My body went rigid. I knew I was alone in the house. Or I thought I was. The steps stopped right outside my door. The knob turned once, twice, slowly. My heart thrashed in my chest as I lifted the knife, barely breathing. Then silence again. The door didn't open. Minutes passed, maybe hours, until I built enough courage to reach for the light switch again. It came back on. The hallway was empty. But at the end of it, I noticed something new. A faint red smear across the wall, like a handprint. I followed it, pulse racing, until it led me back to my mother's old room. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Her bed was untouched, covered in dust, but on the pillow, fresh, damp, unmistakable, was a new drop of blood. My throat closed. The diary, which I had left on the kitchen table, was now sitting on her dresser. Open. I stepped closer. A new page had appeared, one that hadn't been there before. The ink was wet, letters trembling as if written moments ago. "He has always been here," it read. "He was never watching me. He was waiting for you." The room suddenly grew colder, and the light bulb flickered violently before shattering. I screamed, stumbling backward, clutching the knife tight. In the silence that followed, I heard it again, the whisper, now closer, almost inside my ear. "Eleanor." I dropped the knife. My legs wouldn't move. The mirror beside the dresser fogged over from a breath that wasn't mine. Slowly, letters began to appear in the condensation, written by an unseen hand. "Look below." I didn't want to look. Every part of me screamed to leave, to run out the door and never come back. But something deeper, a mix of terror and desperate curiosity, kept me frozen in place. The mirror still fogged, the words "look below" fading slowly as if they were breathing. I forced myself to kneel. The floorboards under the dresser were old, warped from age, but one of them looked different, slightly raised. My fingers trembled as I traced along the edges. When I pried it up, a rush of cold air escaped from beneath and a faint, metallic smell hit me, the same scent I'd noticed in the attic. Beneath the floor, wrapped in a decayed linen cloth, was another object, small, heavy. My stomach churned as I pulled it out. It was an old key, blackened with age, tied with the same red thread that bound the lock of hair from the attic box. The key pulsed faintly in my palm, warm, almost alive. On its handle, carved so faintly it could barely be seen, were 3 letters, more E, my mother's initials, and mine. I wanted to throw it away, but when I tried to loosen my fingers, they wouldn't move. It felt as if something unseen was holding my hand in place. The air thickened, pressing around me until I could barely breathe. Then a whisper filled the room, no longer soft. This one was angry, desperate. "You opened what was sealed." The door behind me slammed shut with a deafening crack. The mirror shattered into pieces, each shard reflecting my terrified face. I screamed and dropped the key, but instead of hitting the floor, it vanished before my eyes like it had been swallowed by the air itself. My breath came in short, ragged bursts. I ran to the door, yanking the handle again and again, but it was locked tight. Then I felt it. Cold fingers brushed against the back of my neck. Not a wind. A touch. I turned, heart thundering, and there, just for a moment, stood a figure in the corner of the room, pale, motionless. Its eyes were hollow, black pits that seemed to pull the light into them, and its smile, it was wrong, stretched too wide, trembling like something that had forgotten how to be human. I stumbled backward, fell hard, and blinked. When I looked again, it was gone. Only the red thread remained on the floor where it had stood, tied into a knot shaped like a keyhole. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window until morning, watching the horizon bleed into light. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just haunting the house. It was haunting me. When dawn finally broke, I felt like a ghost myself. My skin was clammy, my eyes hollow, and every sound in the house made my muscles tense. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. The air still smelled faintly of iron, and sometimes I swore I could hear the soft clink of the vanished key echoing somewhere deep within the walls. I needed answers, something solid, something human. I decided to visit the town archives. the same place where my mother used to volunteer when I was a child. Maybe I could find something about the house, about her, about him. The building was quiet, filled with dust and old paper. An elderly librarian greeted me with a weary smile. But when I told her my mother's name, Margaret Rose Everett, her expression shifted. "You're her daughter?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. She came here often in her last months. She was researching something. My heart skipped. Researching what? I pressed. The woman hesitated, glancing around before motioning for me to follow. She led me into a back room and pulled out a faded folder marked Property Records, 1910 to 1950. Inside there were documents about our house, its construction, its owners, the land's previous use. That's when I saw it. A headline from a local newspaper, dated 1929. Family found dead in mysterious basement fire. Only daughter missing. The photo was grainy, but I recognized the outline of my home in the background. The daughter's name was circled in red pen, faded, but visible. Eleanor May Reed. My blood ran cold. Another Eleanor. Another missing girl. And the initials on the key M.R.E. suddenly made a horrible kind of sense. Margaret Rose Everett. Eleanor May Reed. Different eras, same letters, same house. The librarian's voice shook as she spoke. "Your mother said the girl never left. She believed the spirit of that child was bound to the place, and that every woman who lived there was connected to her. Somehow, my throat felt tight. She thought I was connected to her?" The woman nodded slowly. She said, "The bloodline isn't about family. It's about choice. Whoever finds the diary invites her in." My hands trembled. The diary, the blood, my name. It wasn't my mother who wrote that final message. It was her. The missing girl. I could barely stand as realization washed over me. I thanked the librarian and stumbled outside, gasping for air. The sunlight hit my face, but I didn't feel it. When I got home, the front door was already open. The air inside was colder than before, the shadows darker, and on the floor, waiting for me, lay the key. The key glistened faintly in the dim light, resting exactly where I had dropped it nights ago. Only now it looked new, polished, untouched by time. My hands shook as I reached for it, and the instant my skin met the metal, a jolt shot up my arm. My vision blurred. For a heartbeat, I wasn't in my house anymore. I stood in the same hallway, but the wallpaper was different, the furniture older, and the air thick with smoke. I could hear distant screams, a woman crying, the crackle of fire. The reflection in the hallway mirror wasn't mine. It was a little girl, maybe 10 years old, with tangled hair and eyes that looked exactly like mine. She whispered something I couldn't understand before everything went black. When I came to, I was on the floor, gasping for air. The house was quiet again, but I could still smell the smoke. My fingers were red where they'd touched the key as though it had burned me. I stumbled to my mother's diary, flipping through the pages again, desperate for something, anything that could explain this. Near the middle, between two pages I hadn't noticed before, there was a folded photograph. It showed a woman I didn't recognize standing beside a little girl in front of the house, our house. On the back, written in faint cursive, were the words, "She always comes back." I didn't understand. Was this Eleanor May Reed? Was she trying to come back through me? I pressed my hand to my chest, feeling my heartbeat race faster and faster, almost painful. And then I heard it again. That soft, melodic whisper coming from the walls, from the air itself, repeating the same phrase over and over. "You opened what was sealed. You are the door now." My heart nearly stopped when the radio in the living room turned on by itself, static filling the silence. Between the hissing, a voice broke through my mother's voice. "Eleanor, I tried to stop her, but she chose you." The static screamed and then cut to silence. I dropped the diary, trembling so hard I could barely stand. Every light in the house flickered at once. The temperature plunged. The walls seemed to breathe. Then came the sound of small footsteps, bare feet, moving toward me down the hallway. Slow, wet, deliberate. I froze, staring at the doorway. The footsteps stopped just beyond it. A child's giggle echoed through the air, followed by a whisper so close it brushed against my ear. "You found my key." I ran. I didn't think, didn't breathe, just ran. My feet slammed against the wooden floor, every step echoing like a heartbeat through the hollow house. But no matter where I turned, the whispers followed, slipping through the cracks in the walls, the vents, the ceilings. "You found my key. You found my key." The voice wasn't angry anymore. It was playful, childlike. That made it worse. I burst through the kitchen door and stumbled into the cold night air. The sky was heavy with clouds, and rain began to fall, soaking my clothes instantly. I looked back, and the house was glowing faintly from within, as if light were leaking through its walls. Something moved past one of the upstairs windows. A small silhouette, tilting its head slowly to the side, watching me. I sprinted toward my car parked at the end of the gravel driveway, but when I reached for the handle, my fingers met rust and rot. The car looked as though it had been sitting there for decades, its tires flat, windshield shattered, vines crawling across its surface. My mind screamed, "No, no, no." I turned to run down the road instead, but the landscape had changed. The trees leaned inward unnaturally, their branches twisting like arms reaching out to block my way. The air pulsed, humming with a low vibration that made my bones ache. I stumbled backward, clutching the pendant that hung around my neck, my mother's locket. When I opened it, there was no photo inside anymore. Just a lock of hair tied with that same red thread. And then, from behind me, a soft voice said, "You can't run from home." I turned slowly. She stood at the edge of the porch small, barefoot, her dress white but stained with soot. Her eyes were bottomless black, her smile cracked, and when she spoke, I heard both her voice and my mother's layered together. "You opened the door, Eleanor. Now you must finish it." I shook my head, stumbling backward, my breath coming out in sharp gasps. "What do you want from me?" I screamed. She tilted her head again, that unnatural twitch that made my stomach twist. "To be whole again," she whispered. "You are me now." The rain stopped, the wind died. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then she stepped forward, and her small hand reached for mine. My fingers moved on their own, drawn like magnets. When our skin touched, the ground beneath us shuddered. My vision blurred again, and I saw flashes, my mother crying, the fire, a child screaming, the diary being buried beneath the floorboards. Then darkness swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer outside. I was back in my mother's bedroom, though everything looked different, cleaner, brighter, as if time had reversed. The curtains fluttered gently, despite the windows being closed. The mirror was whole again, reflecting not just my image but something wrong about it. My face was paler, my hair damp with sweat, and my eyes weren't mine anymore. They were darker, emptier, as though someone else was looking through me. The diary lay open on the bed, its pages turning slowly on their own. Every turn released a faint scent of ash and blood. My hands moved without my will, picking it up, tracing the old stains. My lips began to whisper words I didn't understand, in a voice that didn't belong to me. The house trembled as if breathing along with the chant. A cold wind swept through the room and the lights flickered before bursting into darkness. In the reflection of the mirror, I saw her, the girl, standing right behind me. But when I turned, the space was empty. My breath fogged the air, and a whisper echoed around me. "You saw through my eyes. Now see through my life." The floor cracked beneath my feet, and I fell not into darkness, but into memory. I stood in the same house, but it was burning. Flames licked the walls. devouring the wallpaper, crawling up the staircase. I was smaller. My hands were tiny, covered in soot. I could hear a woman screaming, her voice sharp with terror. "Eleanor! Don't open the door!" she cried. But I, or rather the other me, didn't listen. I reached for the key on the dresser, turned it in the lock, and unleashed something unspeakable. A shadow poured out, thick and alive, wrapping around the walls like smoke that whispered, blood for blood, door for door. Then the world collapsed into ash. When I gasped awake again, I was on the floor of my own bedroom. My throat was raw, my fingernails bleeding from clawing the wood. The diary was gone. The only thing left was the key back in my hand, glowing faintly. I could hear 2 heartbeats in my chest now, mine and hers. And when I spoke, it wasn't just my voice anymore, it was ours. "I remember now," I whispered. "You didn't want to be saved. You wanted to be reborn." The air vibrated and a child's laughter filled the room, echoing through the walls until it sounded almost like crying. I staggered toward the window, gasping for air that felt heavier with every breath. The world outside was still, too still. No wind, no birds, no sound, only the faint hum of something alive within the house. My reflection in the glass moved a split second after I did, a delay so small but so wrong that I couldn't unsee it. My fingers brushed the pane and the reflection smiled back before I did. My body stiffened. "Stop it," I whispered. But it didn't. The reflection tilted its head, that same slow, eerie tilt the girl had done before. My reflection whispered, though my lips never moved. "We were never separate, Eleanor. We were waiting for you to remember." I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. But everywhere I turned, mirrors caught my image, and every one of them moved differently. Some slower, some faster, some not at all. My own eyes followed me like strangers. I screamed, covering them, but when I opened them again, all the mirrors showed the same thing. Not me, but a little girl standing behind me, her hands resting gently on my shoulders. Her black eyes locked onto mine through the reflection. "You freed me," she said, her voice both a whisper and an echo. "But you forgot the price." I felt her fingers dig into my skin, cold, sharp, and then warmth spread through my chest. A pulse that didn't feel human. My heartbeat slowed, blending with another rhythm, steady and ancient. My vision blurred. I saw flashes. My mother sealing the box, crying, whispering a prayer I couldn't understand. The fire, the blood on the last page. The generations that came before me, all of them connected by the same mark, the same house, the same curse. I was the final link, the one foolish enough to open what was meant to stay buried. The girl stepped closer in the reflection until her face overlapped mine completely. "Now," she said, "we are one." The light bulbs burst, shards flying through the air like sparks. The room fell into total darkness, and from within me, I felt something move, a slow, crawling coldness spreading from my heart to my fingertips. I screamed, but the sound that came out wasn't my voice. It was hers. Somewhere deep within, I could still hear my mother's voice, faint and broken. "Fight her, Eleanor. Don't let her finish what I couldn't stop." But how do you fight something that wears your face? The air around me thickened, vibrating like the house itself had a heartbeat. Every breath I took felt stolen, borrowed from something that wanted it back. The walls began to pulse faintly, the same rhythm as my chest. I stumbled through the hallway, mirrors flashing on either side, each one showing me a different version of myself. Laughing, crying, screaming, but none reflected the truth. I reached the front door and tried to open it, but the knob was ice cold, fused in place. My reflection in the nearby window looked back with a calm smile. "There's nowhere else to go," she said softly. "You're home now." I backed away, shaking my head. "No, this isn't my home. It's hers." My words echoed strangely, bouncing off the walls like whispers. I ran into the kitchen, searching for something, anything to ground me in reality. The table was still there, the diary gone, but on the wood, in fresh crimson smears, a new message had appeared. It ends where it began. I knew exactly what that meant. The basement. The place where the first knock had come. The place my mother warned me never to go. My body moved before my mind caught up. Each step down the stairs felt like sinking deeper into water. The air grew colder, heavier, and a low hum filled my ears, like a voice too deep to be understood. My flashlight flickered wildly, revealing glimpses of symbols drawn in dark stains across the concrete walls, circles, eyes, names, my name repeated over and over. I reached the bottom, and there, in the center of the floor, was a small wooden door I had never seen before, no bigger than a coffin lid. The key in my hand began to glow faintly again, as if recognizing its home. Tears burned my eyes. I wanted to run, to throw the key into the dark and forget everything, but I couldn't. Something stronger than fear, something that felt like destiny, pulled me forward. I knelt down, fitting the key into the lock. The moment I turned it, a deep sound filled the room, not like metal clicking, but like breath escaping. The air shifted. The shadows twisted. A child's giggle echoed, followed by the soft patter of bare feet behind me. I turned slowly, the beam of my flashlight trembling, and there she was. The girl from the fire. The one from the mirrors. Her charred dress clung to her small frame, her smile cracked but peaceful now. "You remember," she whispered. "Now, let me out." My hand hovered over the key, every instinct screaming to stop. But something deeper, something older, kept pulling me forward. The girl's voice was soft, pleading, and for a moment, it almost sounded human. "Please, Eleanor," she whispered. "It hurts to be forgotten." Tears welled in my eyes. Maybe she wasn't a monster. Maybe she was just lost. My mother had tried to seal her away, but what if that had trapped a child's soul in endless torment? My heart ached at the thought. My fingers trembled on the cold metal as the basement light flickered again, throwing her shadow against the wall, except her shadow wasn't shaped like a girl. It was tall, twisted, horned, and it moved even when she stood still. I froze. My stomach turned to ice. The child's eyes lifted toward me, and for the first time her voice changed. No longer a whisper, now layered, deep, ancient. "You were always meant to open the door. She tried to stop you, but blood remembers blood." My breath hitched. "You're not her," I whispered. The thing smiled. I was never just her. The air grew so cold I could see my breath. The key pulsed, heating in my palm until it burned. I tried to pull it out, but it wouldn't move. The small door began to shake violently, something pounding from the other side, slow at first, then faster, stronger. My mother's voice echoed suddenly from nowhere, desperate and breaking. "Eleanor, don't! That's not her soul, it's what killed her." My knees buckled, the sound piercing through me. The pounding stopped. Silence. Then a whisper, softer, almost kind. "Don't listen to her. She left you. I've been waiting longer." I covered my ears, crying out, but the voices filled my head. My mother's pleas tangled with the girl's whispers, both fighting for space in my mind. I couldn't tell which was real anymore. My vision blurred, the edges of the world warping. I saw flashes again, the fire consuming the house, my mother sealing the floor, blood spilling across wood, and a shadow watching from behind her. And then, a choice. My hand still on the key, the girl's reflection staring up at me through the metal. Her voice trembling, she said, "Set me free, and I'll give you peace. Turn away, and I'll follow you forever." I looked at the door, then at my burned palm, then at the faint light that pulsed from above, the last remnant of my mother's presence. I whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom." Then I turned the key. The moment the key turned, a low hum filled the air, deep, vibrating through my bones like the earth itself was breathing. The small wooden door cracked open, releasing a rush of cold air so sharp it stole the breath from my lungs. The lights overhead exploded, plunging the basement into darkness. I fell backward, choking as a thick, black mist began to pour from the opening, swirling like smoke but moving with purpose. Within it, faces flickered, screaming, crying, begging. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as the girl's voice echoed from within the fog, now layered with dozens of others. "You did it, Eleanor! You remembered us all." I tried to crawl away, but the mist moved softer, wrapping around my wrists, my ankles, my throat. It was cold and heavy, pressing into my skin until I could feel it beneath the surface. "Let me go!" I screamed, but the voice that came out wasn't mine. It was younger, smaller, trembling. The fog thickened, forming a shape before me. The girl stepped out, but her form was no longer that of a child. She was taller now, her features twisted with pain and fury, her eyes glowing a deep crimson. "They trapped me in here for what I did," she hissed. "Now we share the same blood. And you've set us free." I could hear my mother's voice again, faint, fading fast. "Eleanor, listen to me. Close it before she takes everything." I reached for the key, still in the lock, but my hand wouldn't obey. It was no longer mine. The girl's laughter echoed all around, a horrible, childlike sound warped into something monstrous. "You can't close what you've become," she said. The mist surged forward, slamming into me with a force that knocked me off my feet. My vision fractured, flickering between two worlds, one where I stood in the burning basement of 1929, and another where my house now groaned and split under invisible weight. Every mirror upstairs shattered at once, a deafening chorus of glass and screams. The air reeked of ash and iron. My reflection appeared in one of the shards near my feet, but it wasn't me anymore. Her eyes stared back, dark and endless. "You're free now," she whispered, "just as I am." I felt my body go cold, my pulse fading, my breath slowing. The shadows rose higher, circling us until there was nothing left but her smile, calm, satisfied, eternal. When I woke up, the house was silent. Too silent. The kind of quiet that feels wrong, like the air itself is holding its breath. I lay on the cold basement floor, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember where I was, what had happened. My body felt heavier, my thoughts sluggish, like something was inside me that didn't belong. Then I noticed my hands. They were smaller, pale, not mine. My stomach twisted as I scrambled toward the old mirror leaning against the wall. My reflection stared back, a face not my own. The little girl, Eleanor May Reed. Her dark eyes blinked when I did, but the expression on her face wasn't fear. It was peace. She had taken my place. I screamed, but the sound that came out wasn't human. It was a distorted echo, a mixture of two voices, hers and mine. The walls groaned, the floorboards above creaking as footsteps moved slowly through the house. I knew those steps. My mother's. But she was gone, wasn't she? I climbed the stairs on shaking legs, each step heavier than the last. When I reached the top, the house looked exactly as it had when I was a child. The photographs on the wall were old again, their edges curling, showing faces I didn't recognize. On the table by the door lay the diary, open to the last page. Only now the handwriting wasn't my mother's, it was mine. And across it, written in deep red letters, were the words, "Thank you for coming home." Tears burned down my cheeks. "No," I whispered. "I didn't free you. I freed me." The house trembled, pictures falling, dust raining from the ceiling. The girl's voice filled the air, echoing from every wall. "You were always me, Eleanor. I just needed you to remember." I backed away as the shadows lengthened, stretching toward me like hands. My reflection in the hallway mirror smiled, but my lips did not. She lifted her hand slowly, pressing her palm to the glass. "Come back inside," she whispered. "It's warmer here. I couldn't move." My heart pounded so violently it felt like the house itself shook with it. The mirror began to ripple like water, and through it, I could see the burning basement again, the place where it all began. And in the center of it stood my mother, reaching out to me, tears streaming down her face. "Fight her!" she begged. "Please, Eleanor. Don't let her take you too." I reached toward her reflection. My fingertips brushing the glass caught between two worlds, one that belonged to my blood and one that belonged to my soul. The glass felt alive beneath my fingertips, pulsing like a heartbeat. My mother's reflection reached closer, her eyes filled with sorrow and fear. "You can still stop her," she whispered. "But the girl," my reflection laughed softly, her voice echoing through the walls like a lullaby gone wrong. "There's nothing to stop, Mother. She is me now." The house trembled violently, the lights bursting one by one until only the moonlight illuminated the room through shattered windows. My breath came in shallow gasps as the air turned thick, metallic, the scent of blood filling my lungs. The mirror began to ripple more violently, the images twisting and merging until my mother's hand and the girl's shadow overlapped perfectly. "Choose," they said together, one pleading, one commanding. I could feel the girl inside me, her heartbeat syncing with mine, her whispers weaving through my thoughts. "You've always belonged here," she murmured. "Let go. It's easier if you stop fighting." My mother's voice trembled. "She's lying. If you give in, you'll disappear forever." My vision blurred with tears. I didn't know what was real anymore. Was I fighting her or myself? I closed my eyes, hearing both voices clash like thunder inside my skull. Pain exploded in my chest as the cursed key burned against my skin, glowing through my shirt. I grabbed it, screaming, and drove it into the wooden floor. The entire house shook, a roar filling the air as the mirrors shattered in unison, splintering light across every wall. The girl screamed, an inhuman, piercing sound that made my ears bleed. Shadows burst from her form, twisting, clawing, vanishing into the cracks of the house until only smoke remained. The key melted into ash beneath my hand, the floorboard splitting open to swallow the last traces of darkness. Then, silence. For the first time in weeks, pure silence. When I opened my eyes again, the room was different. Morning light streamed through the windows. The air was warm. The diary lay closed on the floor. No blood, no whispers, no markings. My reflection looked back at me. Just me. Exhausted, tear-streaked, but alive. I sank to the ground, sobbing, whispering, "It's over." Yet, as the sun rose higher, I noticed something. On the mirror, faint and almost invisible in the light, a small handprint appeared. Smaller than mine, fresh, and just before the glass settled, I heard it, so quiet it could have been imagined. A child's voice. "Don't worry, Eleanor. Houses, remember? If you defeated the darkness, but knew it still lingered in your home wood, you stay and guard it, or leave and never look back."